Okay, quick question. If you knew your story would end tomorrow, what would you do differently today? That's kind of heavy, right? But hold on. We are not diving into doom and gloom here because the answer might lie somewhere magical, somewhere with castles, wands, and a boy who lived. Welcome back, fellow mages, to the Grounded Mage, where we discuss how myth and magic live in everyday life. Today, we're going there. We're talking about fear, death, and the surprising wisdom in Harry Potter. Now, before you click away, trust me, this isn't just a Harry Potter recap. This is a conversation about human beings and how we face things like change, loss, and the unknown in our lives. Because whether you're holding a wand or a latte, fear is fear, and how we face it, that's what makes us who we are. So let's get into it. First, I have to mention how excited I am to talk about Harry Potter today. I haven't really had a chance to talk about it in my previous episodes, and I reread the series every single year, all 7 books. It is by far my number one favorite fantasy series. And every time I go back to the Philosopher's Stone, I feel like McGonagall. Potter, it's good to see you. Anyway, back to today's episode. Here's the secret nobody told us when we first picked up the Philosopher's Stone. It isn't just a story about magic. It's a story about mortality. Think about it. From the first page, death is everywhere. Harry's parents are unalived, Voldemort is trying to avoid dying, and the kid who lived becomes the living reminder of death's shadow. Now, we aren't just theorizing here. Rowling said it herself. The entire series is about death. And you know what? That's kind of brilliant, because so much of philosophy, from Socrates to modern psychology, starts with this one uncomfortable truth. We all die. It doesn't matter how many supplements we take, how much exercising we do, how many vegetables we eat in a day. Death comes for all of us, eventually. And what we do with that knowledge determines how we live. Socrates called philosophy a preparation for death. Epicurus said that fearing death was irrational because when it's here, we aren't. But Harry Potter puts that in a way that we can actually feel. Fear of death either makes you monstrous or it makes you brave. It's not just the literal kind of death either. It's every ending we face. The death of a friendship, the end of a chapter in your life, moving cities, growing out of who you used to be. And we often forget that these endings are not always bad. Sometimes they're for the betterment of ourselves or the people around us. I mean, have you ever had someone walk out of your life and at first it made you sad, but as the weeks went by, you started to realize that you feel lighter, maybe even happier that they're not around anymore? We die little deaths all the time, and each one asks us the same question. Are you going to cling to what's gone, or are you going to grow? Think about something in your life that has ended. Maybe it hurt, maybe it scared you, but it also changed you. What did it teach you about how you handle endings? That's what the entire Harry Potter series explores. Not how to avoid loss, but how to live meaningfully because of it. Let's talk about 2 very different ways of facing death, or the fear of death. On one side, Voldemort. The guy literally names himself Flight from Death. I mean, at least he's honest about it. He's obsessed with power and control and survival at any cost. Now, this stems from very early experiences for him, the most important one being the passing of his mother. He believed that she died because she was weak, simply not powerful enough to survive. Now remember, he was quite young when this happened, and his father wasn't in the picture, so naturally he just thought his mom wasn't magically powerful enough to survive. But of course, he would find out later that it was actually his dad who wasn't magical. It's a whole other story for a whole other time. In Voldemort's eyes, death is a weakness, and he wanted to prove to the world that he was not weak at all. He feared death because it was the extreme unknown, something completely out of his control. So he studied the darkest of magic to find out how to manipulate death. Becoming immortal was the ultimate way for him to prove that he was the most powerful being in the world. He viewed it as the biggest symbol of strength. Eventually, he starts to split his soul, putting it into multiple random objects in hopes of no one finding them or being able to destroy them, thus being able to live on forever. In doing this, he loses his humanity and his nose. Voldemort is what happens when fear runs the show. And here's the truth. We've all got a little Voldemort in us. That voice that says, if I just control everything, nothing can hurt me. Maybe that means overplanning, overworking, or keeping your guard up so you never have to feel vulnerable. But that kind of control always costs us something. Overplanning can cost us the enjoyment of the event. Overworking can cost us our family time. And keeping your guard up can cost you a special connection with someone who's actually really good for you. Just because you're in control doesn't mean you're going to be happy. Now, contrast that with Dumbledore. Spoiler alert if you haven't finished reading or watching the series. He's calm, wise, occasionally cryptic. The man who tells Harry, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. Now, he doesn't mean that in a careless way. He's not saying, bring it on, I'm ready to die. He's saying that accepting death is part of living well. And Dumbledore didn't just have to accept his own death. In the Philosopher's Stone, he also had to accept the fate of his friend, Nicholas Flamel. The guy who created the stone with the elixir to make him immortal. Knowing that Voldemort was after the stone, he had to talk to Nicholas about how, for the greater good of the wizarding world, it had to be destroyed. He had to accept that life should not be prolonged artificially. And when it came to himself, Dumbledore had options. He could have went the route of Voldemort and found a way to prolong his time being alive. But when Snape told him he had a year left to live, after the curse of the ring of Voldemort's mother, he accepted it. And he used that time to prepare Harry as much as he could for his final battle. He also requested that Snape be the one to unalive him when the time came, and that was to prevent Draco Malfoy from having to do something that would follow him for the rest of his life. Even when he should have been thinking about his own affairs, he was worried about those around him, which is further proof of his acceptance of his inevitable death. When you accept death, you stop fighting the inevitable. You finally make room to live. And we could all use a little Dumbledore energy sometimes, to stop clinging so tightly to control that we squeeze the joy out of the moment. So ask yourself, where are you still trying to outsmart fear instead of just feeling it? Voldemort sought power because he thought it would protect him. Dumbledore sought peace because he knew it was the only thing that truly could. One man almost lived forever, but never lived. The other accepted death and lived fully until the end. That's a philosophy lesson wrapped in a wand and a lemon drop. And then there's the boy himself, Harry Potter, caught between both of those worlds. Harry spends the entirety of the series being sought after by Voldemort. Is that scary for him? Yeah, of course it is. But not for the reason you think. You see, when Harry goes to Hogwarts, he finally finds people that he cares about and who care about him. The reader, or the viewer, gets to see how selfless Harry is very early on. He is always telling his friends not to follow him when he goes to do dangerous tasks. He wants to face the monster on his own so he can protect them. He's not so much scared of what Voldemort will do to him, but what will happen to his friends if he doesn't conquer the Dark Lord. Then there's the Dementors. These are terrifying creatures that suck all of the happiness out of your body until you're left with nothing but your darkest memories. By the third book, Harry has escaped Voldemort multiple times, and it's just a thing he comes to expect. What he doesn't expect is being so affected by the guards of Azkaban. The Dementors target Harry. Why? Because he has lived through multiple instances of trauma, the perfect food for a Dementor. Once Harry knows what these are, he asks, how do I fight them? He doesn't dwell on the fact that they're after him or run away from them. He wants to know how to be stronger so he can face them. It's an approach that's not easy for the average person. It's tough to look at or even think about the things that scare you and want to stand up to them. It's much easier to run away from them. But that begs the question, how far do you get before it catches up with you? With the Dementors, Harry is taught to focus on things that make him happy. Finding the light during our darkest moments is what is going to bring us to the other side of them. The hardest thing to do is think of something you love or care about when the worst experience of your life is being replayed over in your mind. But by not looking for the best moments in your life during that time, the moments that make you remember that you are needed or loved or doing some good in the world, you leave yourself open to disappearing from those people whose lives you make better. And think about what Harry does with the information he gains. He doesn't keep it for himself. When he's building Dumbledore's army, he teaches his class how to use the same spell. He wants them to have the best defense against the thing that could easily take them out of the fight. Harry faces the things that he fears so those he loves can live. It's part of what makes him so upset in the Deathly Hallows when everyone drinks the Polyjuice potion to look like him. He knows that his likeness could get them all unalived, and he had worked hard for 6 years already to ensure that they all survived. The incredible relief he felt when he saw that Ron and Hermione were both safe upon returning to the burrow after the attack was enough to show the reader, or the viewer, how scared he was to lose them. And we all knew what he would be willing to do after that to make sure the people who loved them never had to feel that feeling of dread, that feeling of, what if they're not coming back? But Harry's defining moment comes in the Deathly Hallows, when he walks into the Forbidden Forest knowing he's going to die. No wand raised, no dramatic speech, just acceptance. And that right there is what courage looks like. He's terrified. He doesn't want to die, but he does it anyway. Not because he wants glory, but because he loves. He loves his friends and his teachers and the place that gave him a feeling of having a home. Of course, he wanted to be part of all that for a much longer period of time, but he accepted a deal in order to save all of it. Now, was it kind of ridiculous that he believed that Voldemort would hold up his end of the deal? Yes, but Harry was always trying to see the best in people, so you can't really blame him. His choice is so human. We don't get to choose when we face fear, but we do get to choose how we face it. And let's be real, courage rarely looks cinematic. It looks like sending that difficult text, starting therapy, saying no when it disappoints someone, letting yourself be seen. But you know what? Next time you have to do a brave thing like that, make sure you play an epic soundtrack in your head because you deserve that. Harry didn't conquer death by force. He embraced it with love. And in doing so, he broke its hold over him. That's the paradox at the heart of this story. The one who accepts death is the one who defeats it. It's the same wisdom you find in Stoic philosophy. Memento mori. Remember you will die. Not to be morbid, but to be free. Because when you remember that time is finite, suddenly everything becomes sacred. You stop waiting for the right time to live your life because you realize this is it. This moment is your only spell. So, what do we do with all this? Because most of us aren't chosen ones with a prophecy and a pet owl. But we are all human, which means we all face fear, loss, and the unknown. Harry Potter gives us 3 important lessons in this. Lesson 1, avoiding fear makes it worse. Remember the boggart? The only way to handle it was to face it and laugh. The same goes for fears in your own life. Fear loses power when you stop running away from it. We can't always turn it into something we can laugh at, but there's always the choice to face it and understand it so it doesn't consume us. Lesson 2, clinging to control destroys us. Voldemort tried to control life itself and lost everything that made it worth living. We do the same thing in smaller ways. We cling too tightly to outcomes. We trade peace for perfectionism. If you're someone who's a control freak, guilty, you know this feeling all too well. You focus on the micro details instead of the big picture. This burns you out, and once that event or deadline finally arrives, you're not even happy or relieved because you're too tired to be. It's, okay, great, now what's next? Because there's always something that's next, and there's never any time in between because you haven't left yourself any. We have to find ways of asking for help so the process is smoother and there's time to enjoy your hard work. Lesson 3, love makes fear bearable. Harry didn't walk into the forest alone. He carried his parents, Sirius, Lupin, their love, and their memories. He also knew what he was going in there for. He was going in there to save the lives of his friends, his mentors, and all of the people who were fighting the same battle. It was never about him. It was about making sure everyone else could still live a full life. That's what real strength looks like. Community, connection, remembering you're not alone. The biggest bonus lesson is this. Fearing death to the point of controlling it is selfish. Fearing death to that extent makes you forget the people around you who want to experience all of you at your best and most present. We have to remember that every fear becomes smaller when it's shared. Every loss becomes softer when it's honored. Think about how Harry dealt with the death of Dobby. It was devastating to lose him, the way that he did especially. But he honored him by giving him a proper burial and a beautiful spot to rest. Did it make the pain go away? Did it stop him from fearing for the lives of his remaining friends or himself? No, but it did help him heal. And the fact that he was surrounded by people who supported his choice made it easier to cope with. Harry pushed forward so that everyone else could live. It's what drew people to him. He knew what could happen to him, but he didn't care as long as he did everything he could to protect the people he loved. And he attracted like-minded people. Luna, Neville, Ron, who is a great topic for a future video. I mean, to me, there's no side character that rivals Ron Weasley in terms of loyalty. If you'd like to hear an episode about Ron Weasley or any other loyal sidekick, let me know in the comments down below. Moving on, maybe the real lesson is this. We don't need to defeat death. We just need to live so meaningfully that when it comes, we can greet it like an old friend. That's the kind of magic no spell can conjure, and the kind the world needs the most. So, next time you revisit Harry Potter, look past the wands and the battles. Notice how it teaches us to face fear with love, to see endings as beginnings, and to live like every day is a spell worth casting. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, check out last week's video about how the hero's journey is your story too. It's linked at the end of this video and in the description down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff for me and the algorithm. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend who loves Harry Potter, or someone who might just need a little courage right now. Until next week, make it make magic.